May I speak to you in the name of God, who is Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. If you don't know how our lectionary works, it's split into the readings and the opening collects we use. It's split into 3 years, A, B, and C. Year A, we look at the Gospel of Matthew. Year B this year, the Gospel of Mark. And year C, Luke. The Gospel of John gets thrown in all around, like the past month and a half or so we've had the Gospel of John. And then within each year, each Sunday has readings attributed to it. So this week, you notice on the front of your bulletin, it says it's Proper 17. And Proper 17 is the Sunday closest to August 31st every year. So the readings we have, the prayer we opened with this morning, we hear every 3 years about this time of year. Which I'm always struck by how well our readings and collect line up with this time of year. We heard about human traditions in the gospel, and then this week is week 1 of the college football season. Like it or not, football is one of the biggest tradition-making machines in our culture. I'm sure if we were in a different country, it'd be probably soccer. But in America, here, if you want an example of human traditions, look at college campuses this time of year. Look at how people are dressing, the way they move their hands, the things they do going in and out of games. There are teams that when they go in, they have to touch a certain rock. The best example I can think of in our society of human traditions is football, college and pro. And to a lesser degree, other sports as well. We create these traditions and they take over. They have meaning and power in our lives. Where we find Jesus in the gospel today, he and his disciples are ignoring some traditions. Now, first off, please wash your hands before eating. Whenever you get a chance, wash your hands. Jesus isn't telling us here not to do that. He's talking about elevating human traditions to something higher than they actually are. He's less talking about, I wash my hands before I come into the service every Sunday. But still, later on in the service, Todd is going to pour some water over my hands back there, right? That's not really going to clean my hands, but that's what he's talking about. That kind of ritual cleaning. And how the Pharisees and the scribes would think that Jesus and his disciples were ritually impure, ritually unclean, because they didn't do that. As human beings, they were stained because they didn't wash their hands before that meal. That's what Jesus is speaking out against. Traditions are good. Traditions are wonderful things. I wish we had the devotion to some of our traditions that you see on ESPN and CBS and all those other channels on Saturdays throughout the fall. Traditions are really important. It's why we do the same thing here every Sunday. While these words we're saying together, these songs we're singing together are really nice, there are probably better words, probably better songs. But by saying these ones over and over and over again, we're letting them seep into our bones. Because one of the powerful things about traditions is they not only affect who you are right now, but they affect who you are forming to become. They seep into you and change who you are becoming. That's why I wish our traditions had some of the devotion you see in college to game day. I went to seminary, having graduated from URI, never having been to a college football game. Never really caring about college football. My class at seminary, especially my friends, were a bunch of southern guys who went to big football schools. And if you wanted to hang out with your friends in seminary on Saturdays, You were in the more common room watching up to 4 games, I think, at once. We had wired you'd bring down TVs and wire it up. And if you were unaffiliated, if you weren't a fan of a team, this is a bunch of people who were training to be priests. They're theoretically good at evangelism. They made you become a fan of a team. So having never spent more than a couple weeks outside of Rhode Island, I quickly became a fan of the Alabama Crimson Tide. And for a while, my schedule, my weekend plans were built around their game schedule. For a while, my wardrobe was built around their game schedule. Football is a great example of the power that traditions have on us. In our gospel lesson, Jesus isn't saying ignore traditions. He's saying make sure that your traditions are serving the right purpose. Make sure that your traditions are helping people to come to Jesus, come to God and know that they are loved by God. And being formed in turn to the people who go out and love in return. Love God and love our neighbor because we have been loved. Most of the traditions that come up around football and the other human traditions we make don't really affect that too much. But they have the power to. As I said, I became a fan of Alabama. My undershirt right now, because the game was yesterday, is an Alabama t-shirt. My sister-in-law, my brother's wife, graduated from LSU, another big team in the SEC, one of Alabama's rivals. And whenever they come up, I make sure to get pictures of my niece and nephew in my Alabama hats. And we give each other a hard time. And we trash talk each other. And it's all good because we love each other and we're only joking around. Neither of us care about it that much. But there are some people that do. Those traditions, me wearing this undershirt, us trash talking each other, aren't necessarily bad. But for some people, they can be. For some people, that enmity between them is real for no other reason than they like different sports teams. When Curt Schilling was signed to the Red Sox, when it first became public and he was interviewed, and they asked him how he felt about becoming a Red Sox, the first thing he said, I believe, was, well, I guess I hate the Yankees. Again, mostly in jest, but there are some people that those traditions have that power. Now, the thing is, it's not just the sports world. It's not just the outside world that can create human traditions. We do it here too. There's a lot of things about how we gather together, about how we shape our life together as Episcopalians that are just human traditions. Some of them aren't bad. Some are just nice and don't really matter. But some have the power to draw people away from being loved by God and from turning around and loving in response. One of the ones that mostly doesn't matter that came to mind for me was, how many of you were raised in the Episcopal Church? How many of you remember that you couldn't get married unless you were confirmed? Okay, some hands. How many of you know that that's not the case anymore? Less and less hands that went up. So that changed in 1979 with the new prayer book. We started looking at baptism as full admission into the church, into the body of Christ. So why are we going to limit how people can partake in this body if they've been baptized? So we did away with it. I couldn't find any proof, but I believe I read somewhere at one point that that rule came about in maybe the 1500s or 1600s. Because the Bishop of Chichester in England was noticing that no one in his diocese was getting confirmed. So he said, all right, if you want communion, if you want reconciliation, if you want marriage, anything else, you need to be confirmed first. So it lasted from 1500s, 1600s to 1979, my mom was raised in the Episcopal Church. My mom married a Roman Catholic at St. Stephen's in Providence, so I'm sure they had a lot of hoops to jump through. So when I was getting confirmed in the mid-90s, even though this hadn't been the rule in 15, 16 years, maybe a little bit more, I didn't have a choice. And my mom's reasoning was, get confirmed now, then you can decide whether or not you want to go, which is kind of backwards. But this way, if later on in your life you want to be married in the church, it's something you don't have to deal with. It's already taken care of. I didn't know back then it wasn't the rule anymore. My mom didn't know back then it wasn't the rule anymore, but that was her reasoning. Mostly harmless, right? Except, even though, I'm here, Cindy, you knew me at that time, I was going to get confirmed. I spent my free time at church. But I didn't have a choice in my confirmation. Even though I was going to do it, it was forced upon me as a 14 or 15-year-old boy. So it was a lot less meaningful to me because it was forced. And I had thoughts about not wanting to do it, not because I didn't like our tradition, not because I didn't believe in our faith, because I was being told by my mom I had to do it. It kept me from experiencing what could have been an amazing moment of coming to our Lord, of knowing that I am loved, and being formed in a tradition that sends me out to love in return. That's what Jesus is pushing back against in today's gospel lesson. Again, please wash your hands. It's good practice, especially as we're getting later into the fall and into the winter. But don't think that if Todd doesn't pour that water over my hand, I'm somehow stained as a person, or somehow the meal we're going to share here doesn't matter, or is less than it would have been otherwise. Don't elevate our traditions to positions where they can keep you from coming to know Jesus, where they can keep you from coming to know His love, and returning that love to the world around you and to God. I encourage you all, as we go out today, in the days to come this week, to take some time and think about your traditions, whether related to this place or not. Take a look at them and ask yourself, are they helping you to come closer to God? Are they helping you to come to know Jesus more and more? To know His love for you? Are they forming you in a way that lets you love God? That encourages you, as we hear in the letter of James, to practice true religion, to love and care for those in need, to love and care for others as we have been loved by Jesus, as we have been loved by God? Now again, even if the answer is no to that, it's not necessarily a problem. Some traditions are just nice and fun. But if you answer no, ask another question. Ask yourself, is this tradition keeping me from coming closer to God? Is this tradition keeping me from being formed into the kind of person who loves God with all my heart, mind, and soul, and loves my neighbor as myself? If you answered yes to that, I encourage you to spend some more time and think of ways you can break that tradition or transform that tradition so it brings you closer to God. If that division between me and my sister-in-law really led to enmity and dislike and disdain, I would walk away from college football. It's a joke between us, that's it, so it's okay. But it has the power. I've seen it in other people to divide, to lead us away from loving. I can't speak to the traditions you hold to the traditions that are forming you outside of what we do here. But spend some time looking at them and prune away those ones that are drawing you away from God's love. Prune away those ones that keep you from practicing true religion, from loving your neighbor as yourself, loving and caring for those who need it, regardless of if you think they deserve it. Traditions are wonderful, powerful things. Let them form you into someone more Christ-like. Let them form you into someone marked by love, by loving God and loving your neighbor. Amen.